Have you ever sat in a crowded room, looked around at the people surrounding you, and felt an overwhelming sense of exhaustion? Not a physical tiredness from hard work, but a deep mental fatigue. You watch people staring blankly into their palms, their faces lit by a cold blue glow, smiling at things that aren't real, or getting visibly angry at a headline they barely read. You realize that you cannot remember the last time you had a genuine, uninterrupted conversation with someone who wasn't constantly checking a notification. It feels as if the people around us have lost their depth, turning into hollow shells that merely react to digital signals. This is a quiet, heavy frustration that hits millions of people today, especially men who have crossed into their 30s. You remember a world that had a completely different weight to it. You remember when human beings possessed attention spans, independent thoughts, and a basic respect for reality. Today, that world is gone. We are witnessing the slow, agonizing death of our society's collective intelligence. The tragedy isn't just that people have stopped thinking, it is that they are completely convinced they are smarter than ever before. We will explore how modern culture creates the dangerous illusion of intelligence, why independent thought has become an endangered species, and how Carl Jung's psychological insights explain our current cultural collapse. More importantly, we will discuss how you can break free from this collective sleepwalk and protect your own mind in a world that has traded wisdom for cheap digital noise. The trap of cheap knowledge. The greatest trick the modern era ever pulled was convincing the average person that having access to information is the same thing as having intelligence. Today, anyone can pull a device out of their pocket, type a short question into a screen, and receive a simplified summary of a complex topic in 3 seconds. Because the answer arrives instantly, the brain receives a cheap hit of validation. The person walks away feeling like an expert, completely unaware that they have only skimmed the absolute surface of the truth. This constant shortcut has fundamentally altered how the human mind operates. True intelligence requires patience, struggle, and deep concentration. It requires reading long texts, sitting with uncomfortable contradictions, and taking the time to let ideas mature in your head. When you delete the struggle, you delete the learning process entirely. Our society hasn't become more educated, it has become dangerously fast at repeating things it doesn't actually understand. The psychological consequence of this is a culture full of people who possess massive confidence but zero depth. We are surrounded by individuals who can repeat buzzwords and slogans perfectly, but the moment you ask them to explain the logic behind their opinions, their arguments completely collapse. They have outsourced their thinking to algorithms, yet they walk through the world with an unearned sense of intellectual superiority. This is the definition of a brain-dead society, a population that is highly vocal but mentally empty. Carl Jung and the Death of the Individual. The famous psychologist Carl Jung spent a large portion of his life warning the world about the extreme dangers of losing individual consciousness to the crowd. Jung observed that when people stop doing the hard work of thinking for themselves, they automatically default to a state of collective psychology. They stop acting as independent human beings and start moving as a single, mindless herd. Reasonable and psychological distance from the crowd is necessary for the preservation of individual consciousness. When you look at modern society through this lens, the decay becomes incredibly obvious. Social platforms have created a massive global crowd that never sleeps. Because people are terrified of being left out or isolated, they constantly monitor the digital room to see what opinions are currently acceptable. They shape their morals, their language, and their thoughts to match the crowd's expectations. This behavior slowly destroys the individual soul. When you spend every single day practicing how to conform to an external standard, your inner voice quietly dies. You lose the ability to look at a situation objectively and decide what you believe is true. Instead, you wait for the algorithm to tell you how to feel, who to praise, and what to hate. A society made up entirely of people who cannot think outside the collective script is a society that is psychologically dead. The dangers of the false intellectual. There is nothing more destructive to a civilization than a population of people who think they are geniuses while acting completely on raw emotion. In the past, if a person wanted to influence society, they had to prove their competence through years. Today, all it takes to gain a massive audience is a loud voice, a highly emotional take, and a camera. This dynamic has created a new class of false intellectuals. These are individuals who profit heavily off creating social division, anger, and outrage. They don't look for truth, they look for views. They present complex historic human problems as simple black and white battles between good and evil. And because the modern brain has been conditioned to prefer simple answers over complex realities, millions of people consume this content daily, absorbing the toxic emotions without question. The danger here is that these false intellectuals create a hyper-reactive society. People stop analyzing facts and start managing perceptions. They become incredibly fragile. The moment they encounter an independent thinker who challenges their prepackaged worldview, they don't engage in a logical debate. Instead, they react with immediate hostility, insults, and censorship. They genuinely believe they are protecting progress, completely blind to the fact that their inability to tolerate different viewpoints is actively tearing the social fabric apart. The architecture of constant noise. To understand why human behavior has degenerated so rapidly, we have to look at the environment we have built for ourselves. Human beings were never designed to be constantly stimulated. For thousands of years, our daily lives included massive pockets of quiet time, walking through a field, sitting by a fire, or simply staring at a wall while waiting for the rain to stop. In those quiet spaces, the brain was processing life, building resilience, and developing self-awareness. Today, modern society has completely criminalized silence. Every square inch of our lives is filled with manufactured noise. If we are driving, we need a podcast. If we are walking, we need headphones. If we are sitting on the toilet, we need to scroll. We have become utterly terrified of being alone with our own thoughts because our minds have become chaotic, anxious environments. This constant consumption acts like a permanent cognitive overload. The brain is so busy reacting to the endless stream of notifications, short videos, and fake dramas that it never enters a state of deep rest. When a society loses its quiet spaces, it loses its capacity for self-reflection. People stop asking themselves the foundational questions of life. Who am I? Why do I react this way? What am I running from? Instead, they live entirely on the surface, moving from one distraction to the next until their life is over. Reclaiming your mental sovereignty. The decay of our collective culture looks overwhelming, but the solution does not require you to save the entire world. It requires you to save yourself. You must accept that you cannot fix a society that is actively choosing its own distraction, but you can build an unshakable fortress around your own mind. Reclaiming your mental clarity requires a radical act of discipline. You must become intentionally difficult to reach. You need to create strict boundaries between your brain and the digital matrix. Start by drastically cutting down on your consumption of daily news, trending arguments, and short-form content that offers zero intellectual value. Force yourself to engage with materials that demand long-term focus. Read dense, physical books, study complex histories, and spend hours in absolute silence without a device within arm's reach. When you step out into the physical world, focus heavily on the immediate reality in front of you. Build deep, offline relationships based on shared values and real-world actions, not online agreements. By doing this, you stop pouring your vital psychological energy into an automated system that uses your attention for profit. You stop being a reactive puppet of the crowd and become a grounded, independent observer of life. The power of the aware man. As the world around us becomes increasingly shallow, hyper-reactive, and emotionally fragile, the individual who can remain calm, quiet, and deeply focused becomes incredibly powerful. A man who does not seek validation from a screen, who cannot be easily manipulated by outrage, and who commands his own focus is a man who cannot be controlled by modern society. When you choose clarity over noise, your presence changes completely. You develop a distinct weight, a quiet confidence that is felt by everyone you interact with in the real world. People are naturally drawn to individuals who are fully present because true attention has become the rarest commodity on earth. Your ability to listen deeply, your capacity to stay steady during a social storm, and your independence of thought will command a level of respect that no digital profile could ever replicate. You do not need society to wake up for you to live a life of profound meaning and peace. You just need the courage to step away from the herd. Let the collective sleepwalk through their distractions, trading their intelligence for comfort, but not you. You see the matrix clearly, and you choose to stay awake. If this breakdown of our modern reality resonated with your own observations, let me know that you watched this until the very end. Leave a comment below with the word sovereign. Let it be a quiet agreement that you choose to own your mind. Keep your focus sharp, protect your inner peace, and stay grounded. Watch the next video to keep building your psychological strength. I will see you there.